I dove into a pool and broke my neck, fifth vertebrae, and at first I couldn't move anything from my shoulders down, and I was in therapy and I was getting to where I was starting to move, but I was still real stiff, and I started riding a horse, and about 2 weeks after I started riding a horse, I started getting a lot more movement in my lower body, so it has helped quite a bit as far as the movements in my hips and getting everything loose and where I can move freely again.
And at the time when I first met him, he was what you'd normally think of when you say the word quadriplegic. He was not really moving anything from the neck down. He was in a power wheelchair, definitely couldn't walk, could only stand with support, couldn't roll over, couldn't sit up by himself, pretty much completely dependent when I first met him.
I'd say the way the horses move, it helps. It's more when you can't walk, you get real stiff and your muscles kind of deteriorate. But the way the horses move, it's kind of like you walk and it moves your hips up and down, and it just gets you moving like you would if you were walking good, I think.
For Mark, the first 18 years of his life, he was completely normal. He knew what it was to walk normally, to play normally, to run normally, to ride a horse normally. So he had that to his advantage. It was just a matter of retraining his muscles, not so much his brain, more of his spinal cord, the correct way to move, the correct way to handle his newfound tone. So he had the advantage of knowing what it was to take a correct step, what muscles it took to take that step. Whereas if you were born with cerebral palsy or spina bifida, you really have no idea how to move those muscles in space. Mark definitely had an advantage.
The doctors really didn't give me any hope. I don't think they want to give you false hope. They said that I probably wouldn't do anything again. Wouldn't have, because at that time I had no movement at all.
From what I hear, the doctors didn't give Mark or his family very much hope as to his recovery because of the massive extent of his injury. He had significant spinal cord bruising and damage. He ended up having to have part of the vertebrae in his spine fused. Typically, when you think about that type of incident, the results are poor. There's poor outcomes, there's poor muscle return, there's poor sensation return, and so they were reporting to the family what normally happens. There's really not too much hope. It's pretty much a bleak situation. So Mark is truly a miracle, and all the gains that he's made they've been amazing. He's gone above and beyond what any doctor would have expected. And even to this day, he's not participating in therapy and hippotherapy just to maintain what he has. He is still making gains 2 years post, which the doctors also say is unexpected. He's still getting some muscle return back, he's getting some feeling back, he's getting some movement back. We're still fine-tuning his walking. And although today you saw him walking on a walker, when he's on normal ground, meaning inside the clinic or on cement, he's able to walk with a cane and even take short steps without anything. So he's still making progress 2.5 years later.
The first time was real painful as far as, because it had been about probably 3 months of me laying in a bed and not doing anything. When they got me on the first time, it was really a big stretch. But then, yeah, it took about 5 people, and then after that, it was a lot better each time. I wasn't as painful, and it got to where there's no pain.
Mark's main problem is the spasticity or the high tone that's involved everything from his neck down. If he was to sit down and you touch his leg sticks straight out. You can see that his hands are clenched up. That's beyond his control. It's not just weakness, he's tight. And in order for him to walk normally, move normally, he's got to overcome that tightness, that spasticity. The horse is the best thing out there to relieve that. I know he feels the effects of it for many hours after therapy. So he uses it just to relax his muscles to get a much greater stretch. And I can give him manually that any machine can give him. So it's loosening up those tight binds that are holding his legs tight.
Everybody's real nice and real helpful, and just you feel like you're wanting to come and ride, and like everybody wants to help you.
Mark is using a saddle currently. When we started him, he was not able to, he wasn't appropriate. The goals I was working on initially have completely changed to this point. So in the beginning, I did not want him in a saddle. I wanted him just on the pad, on the blanket, so he could fully feel the horse's movement to get that normal input. Like I said, he was not moving at all, basically from the neck down. He had lost that sense of what normal movement was, and so I wanted to give that back to him. Now that he's walking independently with a walker, his mobility has returned, and so I can introduce the saddle with the stirrups. That way I can address his leg strengthening at the same time. Without the stirrups, it's hard to address strengthening in the knees and the feet without those present, because normally the legs just dangle.
It comes and goes. I'll go for a while without any big jumps of it getting better, and then there'll be a big jump where I can do something I couldn't do before, and it when there are big jumps, you can definitely see them. It's still getting better.